Welcome to the Fire and Earth podcast with your hosts, Jason Mefford and Kathy Gruber. Fire and Earth, giving you the keys to unlock your limitless potential. Welcome to another edition of the Fire and Earth podcast. I'm your co-host, Jason Mefford.
And I am Kathy Gruber, and we are back welcoming another phenomenal guest, my dear friend, Peter Bedard. Yay, Peter! Welcome to the Fire and Earth podcast. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, give our listeners and our viewers a little idea of your background and what allows you to sit in this chair with us.
All right. Well, wow. So
no pressure
at all. So my name is Peter Bedard, and I came to, I guess, be able to sit in this chair because I got slammed into the back of a semi-truck. So that's kind of where my whole story starts. Somebody, when I was a kid, just before my 18th birthday, came up behind me and pushed my moped into the back of a parked semi-truck, and I died. So I slammed into the truck. I actually jumped out of my body. I got to watch the whole thing happen. And I went to the other side, and that's a whole story that we can get into if you want to. I obviously came back. I didn't want to come back. Most near-death stories that I've encountered, people want to come back, or they choose to come back. They come back because they have a loved one or a family member, or they have something they want to do in their life. I came back because I was told I had to come back, and I was pretty pissed because I knew that being on the other side and observing what had happened to my body, I was very aware that it wasn't good. And I shattered my left knee. I cracked 5 vertebrae. I split my right wrist open. I lost all the nerves in this hand. I had undiagnosed brain damage, and I had to learn how to walk again. I had fibromyalgia and arthritis and asthma and bronchitis and sciatica, and this sort of cascade of pain that I call it, in which just things kept going wrong. I had my white blood cells starting to attack my red blood cells, and my hemoglobin was splitting and shutting down my organs, and I had deep anxiety and depression, and I lost my purpose in life. I lost my voice in the way I knew how to communicate with the world. I didn't lose my physical voice, but the voice of how I knew life, how I could connect with life. And at that time, I was a dancer, and I was discovered as a dancer, and my whole vision for life was that I was going to be a dancer. I was going to be a performer, and that was my trajectory. I was dancing at that time. I had gotten out of PE in school because I would go and dance for 4 or 5 hours a day, pretty much every day, and that was just a life that I was visioning for myself. And that was taken away from me. So I really didn't know how to exist in the world. So that led me on a whole journey of healing where the doctors were amazing at putting my bones back together. But after that, all they kept doing is offering me more surgeries and more drugs. And I didn't want any of that. So I just suffered. I was in ridiculous amounts of pain for quite a long time, for decades. And I had to learn how to heal myself. And in doing that, I turned to holistic therapies and integrative therapies and any woo-woo thing I could possibly find. And I did it, and it worked. So I healed that whole list of stuff that I had run up against. And, I'm on my new healing journey now where I'm healing other things in my life and successfully doing it. And I took that process that I created for myself in healing and applied that into more of a formalized process and started sharing that with people. So that became called Convergence Healing because it was really a convergence. It was an understanding that the wounds I was having were physical wounds, they were mental wounds, and they were spiritual wounds. And I had to heal all levels of myself. I couldn't just heal the bones because I did. I healed the physical part. I healed those bones. And yet I didn't know what to do with my world. I didn't know what to do with my life. And I was in tremendous amounts of pain still. So I had to continue that healing and figure that out. And that's the convergence. That's the coming together of trying multiple practices, sometimes in the same day, multiple therapies, and understanding that wound, well, I say this to people, you guys can answer the question too, right? So what do you think is more painful, a broken bone or a broken heart?
Ooh, heart.
Broken heart.
Heart.
Yeah, the heart.
Yeah.
And my heart had been ripped out of my chest. I mean, that who I was and my passion for life, my voice had been taken away. And so having to come back and find a new voice, that heart healing was far more important than any of the other healing. And the mental healing, that's a huge one. Oh my God, you know, everybody kept telling me these predictions they had for my life, that I was never going to be able to walk again. If I could walk, it would be very difficult. My life was always going to be painful. There was all these predictions that the doctors, the authority figures in my life, right? Friends, family members were all predicting. And I had this obsessive, fearful thoughts, I had these thoughts of, I'm never going to be able to walk again. I'm never going to be able to do what I want to do in my life. I'm always going to be in pain. And those thoughts of just projecting them over and over and over into the world. Wow. I had to really put a pattern interrupt, like a detour, squirrel. I had to do something to get me to stop that obsessive thinking, because that obsessive thinking was just keeping me in pain.
Right.
So yeah, there's my convergence. I call it I came to call it my healing holistic cocktail. There's a bunch of good stuff mixed together.
Yeah.
It makes you feel good.
With a cherry. Yeah, now you said two things that I mean, I've known you for years. I've heard your story, which is one of the reasons I wanted to have you on. The programming from others is so huge. And I see that with my clients, whether it's a physical thing of, the doctor said blah, blah, blah. So they take that as Bible and they don't even challenge it. They don't question it. Or from your parents, you'll never amount to anything. Or, you're worthless. We get all this programming from the authority figures around us, and we are so susceptible and suggestible to that. So that is one thing that stood out in what you were saying. And we can go on to talk about that. But the other thing is, we think of health, so many people think of health as simply this absence of disease, and they don't take into consideration function and emotional health, spiritual health, sexual health, financial health. And I've done so many articles about stress and finances, and people never think about how stress and your health of your finances affects all the rest of your life. There's all these little parts that have to go into that. And when I told someone, Jason, that we had an astrologer on the show, they're like, aren't you guys a business podcast? Why would you have an astrologer on? I said, because we have different people on with different views to expand our consciousness, because once your consciousness is expanded and stretched, it can't go back to the place it was before. So those were the two things that sort of came to me was, we do have to have this health and this wide variety of input from all these aspects of ourselves. And what is that influence of those people around us, and how is that holding us back? How is that keeping us stuck? So those were the two things that really jumped out in what you just said.
Well, thank you. I think that's so true. And from a business perspective, everything happens in the mind. You have to first perceive it in your inner vision, right? You have to first to be able to think about something in order to create it. And that's the same for health. People think that, like, I love Robert Kiyosaki, right? He has that book, what is it, Rich Dad Poor Dad, right?
Poor Dad, yeah.
And I was reading his book going, oh my God, he's copying my work. Right, yeah. Robert Kiyosaki's copying my work. But he talks about money in a very similar way that I talk about healing, right? He talks about how you have to think something, right? T. Harv Eker, when he talks about money, I do the same thing. I mean, you have to bring that into your healing. And T. Harv has this thing that that I've done for years. And when I read his book, I was like, what the heck? Where you have to create a different thought pattern, and you have to create a different feeling pattern. T. Harv talks about in one of his books that what does he say? He's talking about, I think, when Halle Berry won the Oscar. And he was talking about how he was about to go on. He was in his hotel room. I'm probably going to get the story all wrong, but this is my recollection of it. And Halle Berry says something about the money didn't matter. Now, at that time, she broke the glass ceiling. She was the highest paid actor, not just highest paid female. She was highest paid actor right? And she's a woman of color, so she broke all these ceilings, right?
Mhm.
And she said something in the Oprah interview about how that wasn't the big deal or something. And that set off, T. Harv talked about how that set off an old pattern that he wasn't even aware of. He had a judgment of her, and he caught himself. And he says, I can't go on the stage if I'm going to be, I'm telling people that they need to be aware of these things. They have to stop these things, right? And these thinking processes. And so he talks about how he made a physical change. He started jumping. For whatever reason, they gave him 2 twin beds, I guess, in the room. And he started jumping from one bed to the other and cheering her on. So he created a pattern interrupt that was mental, because he was cheering her on. Yay, go, right? All that type of stuff. You do it, you break that ceiling. Yeah, all that kind of stuff, right? And then he created a physical pattern interrupt to change that state of lack that he was feeling at that moment that was due to that old programming, right? That we have to do around health too.
Yeah.
It's huge to do it around money. And I think it's even bigger to do it around our health, right? Because money is something people can at least wrap their head around. A lot of time health, people can't see it. And I have the reverse. I can see healing far easier than I can see numbers in my bank account. So I've had to work on that. But it's easy to me to look at something and say, well, I can heal that. When a lot of people just sort of go, oh my God, what am I ever going to do? Is I ever going to, and the diagnosis, puts them into a whole pit.
Well, and I think it's interesting too, because as we're talking about, like health, and it's more than just, like you said, absence of disease, right? It's about being a whole person.
Yes.
And I think, because like Kathy, to your point, when somebody said hip or astrologist, why would you bring them on? Kind of a thing. It's like, again, because you're trying to increase your consciousness. And what you find too is that things in our personal life show up in our business, and things in our business life show up in our personal life. And so again, it's all of us have wounds and scars and things from the past, right? I mean, obviously, Peter, yours were very, very physical, and years of physical stuff that you had to go through, but it was also, again, the spiritual, the emotional, everything else. And I've found this in my business as well. When I've put off or haven't healed certain personal things, it shows up in my business. And as soon as I have the courage to actually go down that path and try to heal some of those personal things, it shows up better in my business again, right?
Absolutely.
And so, I know both of you actually, have clients that you're going through on this more. I'm more kind of on the business side. But, I mean, you just see this in general, right? And this whole idea that we have to heal our whole self in order for us to really have that life that we want, right? Because, Peter, maybe you can talk a little bit about kind of that journey back, if you will, because like you said, your heart was broken. Your dream of being a dancer was kind of ripped out from underneath you. So how do people start that healing process? Because I know there's a lot of people that think, oh, I'm scarred. I'm just stuck here. I can't do anything about this, but we can. And so how do people kind of get started on that journey?
So first you have to actually recognize the conversation that you're having with yourself. So you've got to go to that place where you're listening to the story that you're telling yourself, because those stories influence everything. So healing first just like anything else I believe in the world, has to first start in the mind. We have to first be able to perceive ourselves, think about ourselves in a way that is whole, perfect, and complete. And I believe, I'm calling my filters out, I believe that each and every one of us as a being, as a human being, is whole, perfect, and complete. No matter what life has dumped onto us, no matter what situations have been put upon us, no matter what cultural things, gender things, whatever is that have been put onto us, that the truth is, at the core of our being, we are whole with a capital W, we are perfect with a capital P, and we are complete with a capital C, as in the understanding, the absolute of those words. So that is my sort of spiritual base that I come from. So, and because I believe all healing has to have that, right? Even when you go to addictive programs, right? There's always, you have basic physical things you have to do, put down the drugs or the alcohol or whatever, do a pattern interrupt, stop the behavior. But you have to have it first occurring in the mind. And to know your truth of who you are, that the who you are, if whoever's listening right now, if they're suffering, take a moment, pause, step back, know that when you came into this world, you are and always have been whole, perfect, and complete. There's just been a lot of shit dumped on top of you. And so we've got to get rid of that stuff. We have to let you kind of be revealed again as your truth. So that first step is to accept in yourself as yourself that you are whole, perfect, and complete. And any evidence that is contrary to that, we need to put it aside. We need to deny that, whether it's the doctors, and their prescriptions or their diagnoses or whatever it is. We have to come to a point where you as an individual, and I have nothing against allopathic medicine, but when they are predicting my life like they did for me, and they told me what my life was going to be like, that's not acceptable. They are not gods, and they do not have the ability to tell me who I am. And so I want to work with them, but I don't want them to dictate my future. And so to reveal that truth that we are whole, perfect, and complete, and to actually start being able to witness that, to see that as best as possible, to give yourself a vision for yourself as that, to reveal that more in the world. That's a big part of the work that I do, to get people to start thinking about themselves in a way of possibility. So if somebody comes to me, I do a lot of addiction work, or somebody comes to me and they have tumors or something like that, my cancer clients actually taught me this. There's a phrase that we created, and it's called positive denial. And it's not ignorance. It's about saying, I get, this is what the doctor's saying, this is the blood work, this is even how I physically feel. And I don't want that to dictate my life anymore. So I understand the reality of the situation. I come into acceptance. I'm not going to resist it. I accept it completely. And now, because I'm in that place of acceptance, I can move forward. And I'm going to start creating a new reality for myself. Because people think that the reality is created through their past. That's how most of us live. And if the reality is continuing to be created through the past, I mean, this is a great business thing. For some reason, a lot of times with my clients, if I've had them for a while, I end up going into like a business coaching type of thing with them. Very odd. But to be able to look at something and be able to say, am I going to allow this thing to be a continuation of my past? Or am I going to make choices today that are in alignment with the future that I perceive for myself or that I want for myself? Right? Yeah. And so I start having to think and to feel in alignment with that new experience, right? With the thing that I want, the future that I'm holding out for myself. And that's big. My background is in, I have a master's degree in consciousness studies, it's sort of a science religion degree. It's like quantum theory with theology. And I don't think of myself as a quantum theorist, but one big thing I got out of my degree is I think reality happens when a thought and a feeling come together. Right? When that thought and a feeling come together, that's the moment that we actually create reality. Now, normally we have a thought, a fearful thought, and then we have a feeling of like a pit in our stomach, and that fearful thought and that pit in our stomach come together and create the reality that we don't want. Right? And that's habits, that's fear, that's the beliefs from the past, that kind of thing. But reality is being created in the same way. So what if we actually could consciously have thoughts that are in alignment with who we are, what we want, right? A thought of joy, right? And then the feeling of joy. What is that feeling? Is it butterflies in your belly? Is it a stretching of your heart? And can those things come together? Because when they do, they create a whole different reality.
Yeah.
Well, I think it goes back to some of the stuff that I've heard before, like phrases like change your thinking, change your life,
Absolutely.
sort of thing, right? Because again, right, the thoughts that we're having about the conditions that we're experiencing lead to those particular feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want different feelings that'll lead to different action, you got to change the thought, right?
Yep.
And I think this, because before we got started, you made the reference, before we started recording here, about forward motivation. And so it sounds like this is kind of where this comes in. That's a term that I haven't heard before. So maybe kind of talk a little bit about that, because as far as, people visualizing or trying to manifest things, a lot of that kind of goes back to those thoughts that we're having and trying to create certain feelings to draw things to us, to encourage us to take certain actions or not take certain actions as well, right? Like if we're trying to heal from an addictive behavior, we're trying to use some of those pattern interrupts to stop us from going back to the same thing. So how does forward motivation kind of fit in with all this stuff? And how do you kind of define or talk to your clients about that?
Okay, well, there's two types of motivation, basically. There's what I call wedding dress motivation, which is an away from motivation, and there's forward motivation. So wedding dress motivation is the idea of, let's say I'm a little overweight and I want to be a particular size for my wedding dress, right? So I need to lose weight so I look good in my pictures. I need to lose weight so I look good in my pictures. So I start losing weight because I want to look good in my pictures. So I start losing weight, I start losing weight, I start losing weight because I want to look good in my pictures. I want to look good in my pictures. I have a belief about what being looking good is, and I want to lose weight. I want to lose weight. I look good in my pictures. I look good. I'm at the weight I want to be. I'm at the weight I want to be. I actually take my pictures, and now there's no more motivation. So
it's like a short-term thing that you're trying to get to, and once you get there, it kind of falls off.
Exactly, and it's fear-based, right? It's lack or fear-based type of motivation, right? Okay, and that's how most of us are motivating ourselves. Most of us are doing what we're doing. Like I used to have a fear of living in the gutter. That was my fear. And I was like, well, how am I gonna, get away from that, right? Well, but I grew up with the whole mantra. It was a mantra in my family. The money doesn't grow on trees, and it actually does. And I discovered that when I was a little kid, driving to Disneyland through the San Joaquin Valley and seeing all the fruit growing on the trees, and I was like, wait, that's money right there. Like money does grow on trees. That's so wrong. Wait a minute, right? But away from motivation will keep you motivated from fear. And once that goal is reached, it's no longer needed. Now, that was I don't want to live in the gutter. So it was, I don't want to live in the gutter, so I need to make money. I don't want to live in the gutter, so I need to make money. But once I made money, then there was no more motivation. So I had to go back to living in the gutter in order to not live in the gutter, right? So forward motivation looks like this, and I love doing this. A few years ago, I actually couldn't do what I'm going to do right here. My brain just couldn't do it. It was too hard for my head, and I would stumble, and it was very difficult. So forward motivation looks like this. I love to make money. Making money is so much fun. When I make money, I can do all the things I want to do. When I do the things I want to do, I get to have this life, and I have this freedom, and I have the freedom to do what I want to do, where I want to do, how I want to do it. I love to make money. And when I make money, I can help people. When I can actually be there and be present with people because I can afford the time to do that, it's so great. I just love to make money, and I love to give away money, and I love to play with money, and I love to do all these type of things. And money is actually my friend. Money is really, really cool. To actually do what I do and get paid for it is amazing. It's an acknowledgement that I'm good at what I do. And it's so fun to make money. And I get to help these people, and they come, and I just get to talk to them, and I make money because I'm talking to them. And it's just fantastic because they heal and I heal and I make money and they get better. And it's all a good thing. And I just get to make more money and more money. It's really, really fun, right? So I can keep going on with it, right?
I don't keep going on. I'm getting all pumped up. It's like, woo-hoo, let's go. I love making money too.
Exactly. And it challenges all of our old belief systems. I had so many beliefs. I couldn't, just that phrase, I love to make money. Man, I had so many beliefs about that, about all these negative feelings about it. Now it's fun. right? Now, the more I say this, the more I do this, the more I actually get to change my future because I'm challenging. And you notice I got really physical, right? I'm challenging the old physical state, right? That old physical state of fear around making money was very kind of locked down and sort of hunched over. It was, for me, it was very dark, right? It was this very depressing kind of experience. And to try and sound differently, to speak differently, to have words flow out of me was not a possibility.
Right.
So that is how I've actually changed a lot of my thinking. And to do this around health is really big, right? I love being healthy. I love allowing my body to do its healing. I love giving my body the ability to actually grow and prosper and just fill out and to enjoy things. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's amazing, right? To be able to do that on a physical level, right? To be able to speak like that because it challenges all the opinions that we have about ourselves, the beliefs, the judgments about our bodies, about what people told us about our bodies, right? All that type of stuff. So to be able to do that is a part of the healing process.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also part of that moving forward process. And two things that, and we're almost out of time because this is what happens. But two things that you said struck me because I always hear two things apparently. One is I see so many people and I hear so many of my clients going, well, I got to go do this thing and I got to do this job. And, they get really down about this future thing. And it's like, okay, well, you have to go do that thing. So why don't you get excited about it? And this year for July 4th, I got to help out doing all the pyrotechnics for Dodger Stadium's fireworks. It was a blast, no pun intended. But it was, I knew it was going to be hot. I knew it was going to be a hard day of work. And I could have been like, oh, I got to go do this thing. And I was so pumped about it. I get to go do this thing. And I was so excited. You could do that about anything, whether it's dinner with the in-laws or the long drive for Thanksgiving dinner. Why not get excited about it? And that shifts your entire focus. And the other thing is how negative people are about their bodies. Oh, my stupid neck is tight again. And I hate my neck and my arm. We're so terrible to ourselves. It's like if somebody else followed us around and told us these things, I would hope we'd turn around and tell them to shut the fuck up.
Or get a restraining order.
Why are we doing that to ourselves? So it's like I encourage people. My neck is strong. I love my neck. Look how good my neck is, as opposed to the dumb neck hurts again. So it's about shifting that perspective. Not only with our reality, but also with our future. So I love that you brought that up. That's we all get stuck in those traps.
And it's in health, it's in wellness, it's in money, it's in relationships. Yeah. This is something that people can do around any issue, right?
Well, and I want to ask a follow-up question on that too, because I know, like we said, it's so fun to make money, right? The way you said that, right?
Yeah.
Is, I know a lot of people that are trying to improve themselves, try to do affirmations or other things like that. We write down, we say things that we know we're supposed to be thinking, right? To try to reprogram ourselves. But I think so much of the time we don't really believe it, right?
Yeah, and just the thought isn't enough.
Yeah. So the way that you were actually animated in doing that, changing your voice, moving around, seems like that's one of the keys to making this happen. It's kind of what you were just talking about too, Kathy, right? About getting excited about it. That instead of saying, doing your affirmation, it's so fun to make money. I love money. It's so fun to make money, right? That we should actually be like, I love money, baby. Kind of like what you were doing before. Now I can't do it as well as you did, but the actual, because actually physically moving our body, the intonation of our voice does make a difference as well.
Conviction.
And it's almost like make it a game. Right. Yeah. Is that one of the big keys that you see, and kind of one of the differences there too with that, forward motivation is there's no end date. It's not like I got to get in my wedding dress for my wedding, but it's like, this is how I live my life and I just love it. And it's just fucking awesome. Right. Kind of thing. That's really kind of what you're talking about, and taking these things, making them fun, moving around, dancing, looking silly, whatever. Right. Because that's going to help help it get in there and give us that conviction and interrupt some of those patterns of behavior that haven't been serving us well in the past.
And change our reality. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to question the fear-based reality that most of us are living in.
I just want to throw in that Jason and I never look silly.
No.
On this show, we're very serious. We never
do anything silly.
We don't have any bloopers at all of cats jumping on the screen or us making fart noises or we don't have any of that. None of
You're one of the most serious people I've ever met.
Yeah. What are you smoking today, Peter?
Pull my finger.
Yeah. And on that note, we need to wrap up. So, Jason, anything you want to, I mean, this of course has flown by. It's been awesome. Anything you want to add, Jason? We'll toss it back to Peter to close us out.
No, I mean, I just thank you, Peter, for this because actually watching you do that animatedly kind of, it puts something together for me, right? I mean, it's like we hear these things all the time. I love Brian Tracy and I've done some stuff with him. And I remember, one of the things that he always said, and I kind of thought it was a little goofy, right? At first, but he used to say, one of the things that I've learned that's helped me the most is to just say, I like myself. I like myself. I like myself. And he would get all animated and actually, you see Brian, he's kind of a nice, calm guy, but then he'd go, I like myself. I like myself, kind of thing. And it's like, okay, that's a little goofy, but whatever. And then I watch you do this here and it's like, ding, 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 right? Light bulb goes off in my head. It's like, yeah, we should do that. We should be chair dancing. We should be doing the booyah, whatever, right? Kind of thing. Because that's not that we're ever silly or do those kind of things. No. But that is going to help make that difference so that we can really move forward and be excited about the future. And the way we get excited about the future is we got to be excited about it now, right? And so I really appreciate you actually, doing that, modeling that for people. So hopefully, again, to me, that was one of the big takeaways from today. So hopefully the listeners are getting that too. Just be a little crazy, sing it out, dance it out, do whatever,
do
kind of
freaking mime. Who cares?
Yeah.
Get puppets. Blah, 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 blah. No, we're not silly at all. Not very serious, sir.
That's funny.
All right, Peter. I know you have your first book, which I have, which I was going to grab, but it's not within reach because it's right. I can see it. But tell us about your first book, and then I know you have a new one coming out, and your website and all that good stuff, and how people can get a hold of you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. So my first book, I was one of those blessed authors that I just wrote a book and I put it out there. I was just self-publishing it and I put it out and all of a sudden Simon & Schuster bought it. So I had to pull my self-published book and then put out a new one with Simon & Schuster. It was pretty amazing. So yeah. So we launched an imprint with Simon & Schuster called Enliven, and it's called Convergence Healing. Healing pain with energetic love. Convergence Healing, healing pain with energetic love. And it's been great. The book has done really well. It's still available. You could still find it on Amazon and iTunes and Kindle and all that type of stuff. There's also an audio version. You can get an Audible. I get to read the audio version for the book, which was really
sweet.
Fun. And then this next book is actually a very small little book. It's a book that I wanted to put out that's just a few chapters. And it's a very concise sort of way of healing. It's my method applied to different concepts, whether that's anger or being an empath, or whether it's a tumor and anxiety or addiction issues. I take my practice and the work that I do, this convergence healing work, and I give you just a few pages of, hey, think about this, look at this, and try this. It's kind of a teaser type of book, and anybody can get one if they want. I'm going to be giving them away. If they go to the convergencehealing.com website, sign up for my email list, put a little note, free book, and I will actually send you that book as a PDF file when the book comes out. So yeah, you guys want a free copy of it's called Suffering Succotash: How to Gain from Your Pain, a simple guide for healing.
Yay. Oh, good. Well, we will send everyone there. We'll put that in the show notes. We'll put your book cover up kind of right about here somewhere when we put this all together. And this has been an awesome show. I'm so excited. Of course, it flew by. We're actually over time, but whatever, it's our show. We can do whatever the heck we want. I'm Kathy Groover, and I can be reached at kathygruver.com.
And I'm Jason Mefford. I can be reached at jasonmefford.com. So go out, heal yourself, do some funny, silly things, and move forward. Have that forward motivation so you can make the rest of your life exactly the way you want it to be. And we'll catch you on a future episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. See ya.
See ya.